This is the somewhat new xTool F2 Ultra. As always around here, let's speed run some projects and then we'll do all the yapping afterwards. Let's start with some simple slate coasters, because who doesn't love a good slate coaster? For our examples, we'll be engraving an elephant and a leopard. Number one, since it's getting engraved on a dark surface, we need to use the negative image, which is what you see on the right-hand side there. And number two, these are raster images, so they're going to be processed as if they were photos, and I'm hoping to achieve a high-quality photorealistic look. And here's a look at our finished slate coasters. I used the MOPA laser for these, although you could use the blue light if you wanted to. Anyways, these came out just as I was hoping for. Great balance, great detail, love it. Next, we're going to engrave some dragon scales on the blade of this pocket knife. Since I only want the pattern on the blade of the knife, I used the vector tool to trace a basic template and fill that shape with our dragon scales pattern. The engraving process on something like this goes very fast, and here's a look at our scaled out knife blade. Now let's engrave some black aluminum business cards. These are great for practice work. For this example, we're going to do a vector engraving and a raster photo engraving. Let's start with the vector engraving. Now let's run a photo engraving. And here's a look at our finished cards. Looks great on both accounts, just as I expected. The vector engraving is bright and contrasty, and the photo is realistic looking. I could have bumped the power up a tad on the photo engraving, but no big deal. Next, let's do a standard vector style engraving on a brass coin. You'll see two copies of my design here. The first layer is for engraving passes, and the second layer is for cleaning passes. I will loop these until I get the depth that I'm looking for. A little dirty coming straight out of the laser, but after a couple minutes of cleaning and polishing, it's looking very nice. How about engraving a nice leather journal? One of the best things about the F2 Ultra is the camera system, because it really helps you design and lay out your graphics without committing to anything ahead of time. Don't think I need that. And here's a look at our finished engraved journal. Beautiful, crisp, black engraving with no scorching at all on the surface. This is how leather engraving should be done, in my opinion, of course. While on the topic of leather, let's engrave and cut out a minimalist wallet from premium Italian veg tan leather. This style of laser, the F2 Ultra, isn't designed for cutting, but it can accommodate thin materials with smaller designs. If you want to do a lot of cutting, you should get a gantry laser like the P3 instead. And here's a look at our finished minimalist wallet with engraving. This is actually the same style wallet I carry every day. I love how simple it is. Next up, let's try some color engraving on a stainless steel business card. Here's a quick look at my sample design, and I'm going to try to get 3 different colors here. For the background, I'm hoping for a dark purplish space color, and for the alien head, I'm going for jet black and green. I'm very confident I can get the black right, but I'm not as confident on getting that green. It's been a hit or miss for me today, so we'll just run it and see what happens. And here's a look at our finished result. I nailed the background in the black, but the green is a little more neon than I was expecting. It's actually a bit brighter in person than it looks on camera here, but I'll just have to keep playing around with this and revisit it later. Next up, let's get to by far my favorite thing to do, emboss a 3D style coin. Here's a look at what the coin looks like straight out of the laser. Here's what it looks like after some light polishing. And here's what it looks like after applying some brass black and giving it another polish. I can't say enough good things about this result. I'm not surprised that it did a good job, but I am blown away by just how good it looks. The surface is super smooth, it has great depth, it just looks great. Next, we're going to cut out a nameplate necklace pendant from a piece of 925 sterling silver. This sheet is 0.8 millimeters thick, and my God, was it expensive. To cut metal, you're going to need to use the cutting tray that comes with your F2 Ultra, or use something like this little sheet metal holder. You can pick these up on Amazon pretty easily. After designing the nameplate, personally, I like to cut out the interior pieces first, and once they drop, cut the outside. If you're going to be using the standard cut mode, you must, and I repeat must, have wobble turned on. Thicker metals won't cut without it. This nameplate took about 15 passes to cut out, and when it's done, it's going to be filthy and needs some cleanup. I tossed mine in a tumbler for about 20 minutes, and here's what the end result looks like. You could easily take these to a mirror finish with the right tools. Next, we're going to create this plaque using both laser sources in the same project, blue light for the wood engraving and MOPA for the embossed brass emblem. We'll start by engraving the wood, and please don't fact check this Navy ship and this crew, all of this is entirely fictional. Now it's time to engrave the coin emblem, so I switched the mode to emboss so we can get that 3D effect. And here's a look at our finished plaque. The emblem came out great, I love it, but I could have done a better job on the wood engraving. It's not the F2's fault. I just don't engrave a lot of wood and would have to brush up on some of the best practices these days. Last but not least, let's engrave an abstract design on these steel handcuffs, running both cuffs at the same time. Using the camera, I set the focus and took a photo of the cuffs and traced a pattern using the vector tool. Not my finest work, but it should get the job done. I even cut out around the logo and rivet holes. For the artwork, I'm going to fill it with an abstract Aztec style pattern. I'm not going to lie, this took a pretty long time to set up and the cuffs weren't cheap, so I'm crossing my fingers this works out. And here's a look at our finished engraved handcuffs. This turned out awesome. The laser had no problem at all keeping the entire surface in focus when engraving. All right, with projects out of the way, let's have a little chat about the F2 Ultra. I know I'm pretty late to the party here. This laser's already been out for a couple months, so I'm not going to bore you just by reading through the specs. There's already 100 videos out there doing that. Instead, I want to give you some of my personal thoughts after using this laser extensively over the last couple weeks. Let's start with unboxing and setup. I've said it before, I'll say it again, whoever runs the xTool packaging department should get a raise. Everything is packed neatly and securely, everything is labeled. They even give you step-by-step instructions on how each piece should be removed from the box. With this style laser, there's no real assembly required. All you have to do is place it on your table, plug in a couple wires, connect it to your computer, and add it to xTool Studio. This should probably take you 15 to 20 minutes tops, even if you're brand new to lasers. You do have to run a mandatory calibration process after you get it installed to make sure everything is still in proper position, but it's super simple to do. The F2 Ultra comes in two different varieties, one being a single source 60-watt MOPA laser, and the other being a dual source 60-watt MOPA and 40-watt diode laser, and the one I have here is the dual source. Now, looking at the physical machine itself, it's a pretty piece of hardware. I like the F1 Ultra, but it wasn't until I got this one set up that I could tell the F1 Ultra was more of a first draft, and this is more of the final form. Overall, this machine is slightly larger and heavier than the F1 Ultra. However, it has a very similar layout. The buttons and ports are all roughly in the same location, but one cool thing about the F2 Ultra is it has this removable exhaust port section, so you can take it apart and clean everything out. You can see I have a lot of nasty brass dust in here right now I have to clean out. And this is a major upgrade compared to the standard F1 Ultra. One of the biggest issues a lot of people had with the F1 Ultra, including myself, is how flimsy the front shield felt when you lifted it up. You could see it's just this single piece of plastic. So when you would raise it up, it would kind of wobble around a little bit. But that has been corrected in the F2 Ultra. You can see now we have 3 separate panels of plastic that are encased in this frame, which keeps everything rock solid. Overall, it feels like a premium piece of hardware. Now let's go over some of the things that stood out to me, both positive and negative, as I've been experimenting with this laser. The first thing I noted is the 60 watts of MOPA power work as advertised. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little concerned going into this review that for some reason the power wouldn't translate to what's being marketed, but that hasn't been a problem at all. If you take a look at any of the videos on my channel, you can tell I love to do deep engravings on brass and steel. And if you don't have solid power, well, you're gonna be waiting around all day for those jobs to finish. I have another 60 watt fiber that I use in the shop every day, and the F2 Ultra has been easily keeping pace with the results that I'm expecting. In regards to the 40 watts of diode power, I haven't really tried maxing that out yet, but the one time that I did crank it up when I was clearing out the space for the emblem on that wood plaque, I could tell that the power is definitely there. The next feature I wanted to note was the updated camera system. For the F2 Ultra, xTool upgraded to a dual 48 megapixel camera system to improve positioning, and man, oh man, is it good. I think out of everything, this is the feature that I'm most impressed with. Before, when I was using my F1 Ultra, which only has a single camera system, it would get close, but I would still have to make some last minute adjustments before I ran the job. And when I'm running my F2 Ultra, I barely even check for the last minute adjustments. Half the time, I just click start and let it ride. For example, on that handcuffs engraving project, I went straight off of the camera positioning. I didn't double check by framing it. I just clicked start and ran the job. I can't think of any other laser camera system that I would trust like that. Next, I want to mention xTool Studio. So test driving the F2 Ultra here. It's actually my first time using xTool Studio. In fact, I didn't even know that this came out. I guess I'm living under a rock. Anyways, it's kind of hard to talk about the F2 Ultra without talking about xTool Studio because of how intertwined they are. All of the really cool features like coin embossing, curved surface engraving, rotary, color marking, all of those are accessed through different modes in xTool Studio. This approach is quite a bit different than if you were to buy a laser that operates with third-party software like EasyCAD or Lightburn. So if you're someone who demands absolute total control over every single one of your laser parameters at all times, you might not like this. But for anyone newer to lasers, the software is great and it's only getting better. When you want to emboss a coin, you select the embossment mode and it gives you the relevant parameters you need to set for that type of result. When you want to do color marking using the MOPA, you select the color marking tab and it now gives you access to running much higher lines per centimeter and at much higher frequencies, which is needed to get those color effects. So instead of just throwing you to the wolves and telling you to figure it out, xTool offers more of a guiding hand to help you get a little bit closer to your end result. And if you combine that with all of the prepackaged settings, templates, artwork, and AI tools, I have full confidence that you could hit the ground running even as a beginner. Overall, xTool Studio has been great so far. I've had no bugs or issues, and the Wi-Fi connectivity alone is worth the price of the software, which is free. Color marking. I know this is a big selling point and a lot of people want to hear about it, so here's my take. I'm not a huge fan, and I'm not talking about the F2 specifically, I'm talking about color marking in general. I like to focus on projects that are practical and repeatable, and color marking is neither of those things. I don't think it's practical because it takes a really long time to do and sometimes hard to repeat, even if you're using the same settings and same exact type of blank. One time the color might come out perfect, and the next job, it comes out a little bit off. That being said, the F2 Ultra does a great job with the color marking, and they make it really easy to get started doing it, way easier than any other laser software you're gonna use. When I was testing out the color marking, the only color I was really concerned with nailing my settings for was black, and that's because marking black on steel and titanium is actually useful in the real world, and the black that I got with the F2 Ultra is incredible. Look, if you're shopping around specifically to print colors on metal, you're better off just getting a UV printer. And that's not a knock on the F2 Ultra. I would say that about any laser on the market. But if you're cool with color marking being a fun learning experience and a little bit of a novelty, while primarily wanting to engrave metal, the F2 Ultra is right up your alley. So with that being said, who do I think should consider this laser and who should pass on it? Let's start with who I think should pass on this laser. If you want to do a lot of cutting or large format projects like signage, this is absolutely not the laser for you. As a galvo laser, the workspace is inherently limited by its design. And while it can cut metal, wood, leather, acrylic, it's not really designed to do that at a large scale. You know, cutting metal that's 1 millimeter or less or thin leather is fine, but once you get into cutting things like thicker wood, the performance is going to suffer. Number 2, you should not consider this laser if your main goal is to primarily engrave organic materials like wood, leather, and slate. This laser is not cheap, and the bulk of that price goes into setting up the 60-watt MOPA laser, which is designed to work with metal. This laser can absolutely handle those materials I mentioned, especially if you get the dual source. You saw me do a bunch of those in the projects, but at this price point, you could get a much more affordable laser if you don't need to do the engravings on metal. And number 3, you should not consider this laser if your main goal is to engrave on clear or transparent materials like clear acrylic and glass. The wavelength of both the MOPA laser and the diode laser are not compatible with clear materials. They just go right through it. There are hacks that you can do like painting glass or putting a backing on your clear acrylic, but why are you going to spend this much money on a laser and then have to do hacks to get the job done? If cutting and engraving clear acrylic is the most important thing to you, get a CO2 laser. If engraving glass is your main goal, you should check out the new F2 Ultra UV laser, which will handle that no problem. Now, who do I think this laser is for? Number 1, you want to focus on metal engraving. So steel, brass, titanium, aluminum, gold, silver, the list goes on. This machine is designed for engraving on metal, and it has the power and speed to do it efficiently. Engraving pocket knives, doing 3D embossed coins, doing all types of jewelry work. I mean, jewelry alone, I barely scratched the surface on what you could do in that category. Number 2, you want something beginner friendly, but still powerful. So combining the F2 Ultra with xTool Studio with all of its guided modes and prepackaged settings and AI tools is going to make the F2 Ultra one of the easiest metal-focused lasers to learn, especially compared to a laser that's going to be using EasyCAD or Lightburn. I love Lightburn. I use it every day. I created a course on how to use it with a fiber laser. That doesn't negate the fact that you will spend more time hunting around and testing before you get your first win using software like Lightburn or EasyCAD compared to xTool Studio. Number 3, you want a machine that's clean and contained. So here's the truth. The majority of MOPA lasers out there on the market come with no exhaust system and no enclosure. That's the standard. So on top of buying your laser, you have to go out and buy an exhaust system, and you're still operating a potentially dangerous laser in open air. And oh yeah, although you have an exhaust system, you're still probably going to be sucking down some vaporized metal particles because you don't have an enclosure keeping everything secure. Not the best. So having the built-in exhaust system and built-in enclosure is great for your workspace safety and your health. And number 4, you're already plugged into the xTool ecosystem, or you want to become plugged into the xTool ecosystem. So I have a bunch of xTool products, and I love how seamlessly they all work together. I can run my F2 Ultra at the same time I'm running my P2, and I can tab between the different jobs in my xTool Studio. The rotary tools work between them. The templates, you can pull templates from things that you've saved. You can pull templates from the cloud. You can use their AI tools to help you out with all types of different tasks. All of these things are very helpful and save a lot of time. So if you're someone who values that type of ecosystem and you see yourself, maybe buying another xTool product down the line, or you already have xTool products, in that case, I would highly consider adding the F2 Ultra to your lineup for all of your metal engraving. So to wrap things up, I was trying to think of one word that would represent how I feel about my time using the F2 Ultra so far over the past couple weeks. And I think the word I landed on was enjoyable. It's been very enjoyable to use, and I don't say that about a lot of the lasers that I have. Sometimes I just want to toss a coin in the machine, use the cameras to set everything up, use the settings that other people have already figured out, click start, and let it go. And the F2 Ultra allows me to do that when I want to do that. I've been thoroughly impressed by all the results that I've seen so far. Every time something didn't go quite right, it was user error and not the error of the machine. And I already have another list of projects that I want to try out, which of course you'll be seeing on this channel going forward. And now for the disclosure portion of this video. In full transparency, I am an xTool partner and they sent me this laser for an honest review. However, if I come across things that I don't like about the laser, I will disclose them to you. And honestly, that's why I like working with xTool, because they are very receptive to feedback and they're always trying to improve and push the envelope. And I appreciate that. And I'm gonna offer something I've never tried before. So if watching this review helps you in deciding to purchase your own F2 Ultra, and you use the link in the video description below, which is my affiliate link, feel free to send me an email if you want to set up a free 30-minute Zoom call to get you set up if you're newer to lasers, or if you don't want my help at all, but you want some of my settings or some of the projects that I worked on in this video or any of the videos that I do on my channel. It's all yours. That time is yours. And that's my thank you for using my affiliate link. Again, clicking the link in the video description below doesn't cost you anything, but xTool does kick back a couple bucks to me, which helps me pay for everything that I've got going on here. These videos are 20 minutes long, but they are weeks and weeks of planning and they are very time consuming. Just make sure to include your order number in the email for reference. And if you're still here, as always, thanks for watching. And if you have any specific questions on the F2 Ultra, you can add them in the comments section below and I will answer them to my best ability. Catch you guys later.